Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube. It's your girl Honey. Today we're talking about having your Pluto in the 12th house. I I find Pluto being in the 12th, the 8th and the 4th to be one of the most difficult placements to have Pluto. It's very karmic. And I find when it does fall into the 12th house, there's a lot of energy from your past life that you have to deal in this life, right? Just to throw it out there, this is going to be a very long video. There's a lot to talk about because Pluto is a malefic and it falls into the house of the subconscious, all right? So I advise you to watch it all the way through because there's a lot of information I'm about to release, right? So when you have Pluto, Pluto is the planet of transformation. It's a very karmic when it falls into house 1, 4, and 8. And it relates to trauma, okay? There's also, Pluto also relates to death, the rebirth, sexuality. Pluto is ruled by Scorpio. Pluto is home to the 8th house on the zodiac. The 8th house represents sex, death, rebirth, transformation, other people's resources, joint finances, crisis as well. Very important to throw in there, crisis. And Pluto is a malefic. The 12th house is home to Pisces. Pisces is the ruler of Neptune. The more and more I look at people's charts, when you have Pluto, when you have Neptune squares, I want to specialize more in squares. And Neptune squares is very difficult to deal with, especially when you're looking at synastry. I don't like Neptune at all. So the house of Neptune here is a very interesting place to have your Pluto. I also find because the 12th house is a very interesting, very misunderstood house, a lot of people don't really know how to decipher this energy properly. However, when you are a 12th house person, I'm a 12th house person, I'm also an 8th house person, I feel these people can understand the energy without having to explain it because it's 12th house. You cannot see 12th house things. 12th house represents your imagination, your subconscious, your conscious, your dreams, your hidden enemies. So important we talk about hidden enemies in this video. And it's the house that you cannot see. It's more based on a feeling and you can't describe it because 12th house also represents your past life, outer realm experiences, lucid dreams, things that you cannot see, very secretive stuff, personal and private to you. Hence why when you look at people who are suffering with schizophrenia, any type of mental disorder, you look at their 12th house on their natal chart and that will give you an understanding as to what the fuck is going on here, okay? So I don't feel like a lot of people that are dealing with mental health issues come into this world and they have a mental health issue. I find that they are still trapped. I always say this. They are still trapped between between another realm and this realm. That's why they're acting in different ways because it's very difficult to control this house. Just wanted to say that. So what happens when Pluto falls into the 12th house? The 12th house represents the first 24 hours of when you was born. So I'm from the Pluto Scorpio generation, and a few of my friends have the Libra and Scorpio as well. So people who have Libra and Scorpio, the first 24 hours could possibly represent maybe a near-death experience before birth, something to do with trauma. It can also represent, because the 12th house is in an air sign, there could have been some type of difficulties or struggles to do with your breathing as you was being born, or in your early years in your early hours of coming out of your mum. Okay, when you have Scorpio in there, it could just represent some type of near-death experience. However, this isn't always true for everyone because my sister has this place when she came out, very easily, she came out and she had no issues to do with death. But what I have found with this particular house is this is the house of your imagination, it's your subconscious, and you are going to attract a lot of people who leave their burdens onto you. And who I call these people the bone collectors, because you guys are amazing at keeping secrets. Especially like my sister, I go to her and I tell her bare family stuff, but I really shouldn't because it is a big burden for you guys, because it's very karmic. you know, something happened in your past life and you're having to pay for it in this life, having this placement, right? But there are ways in which you turn this planet, this placement into a positive. And although you are someone who has to deal with other people's problems, because you attract people with issues, you attract people that offload their problems onto you, you have to do a shit load of spiritual work. And I always advise this to my Pluto 12th house clients in regards to spirituality. And what happens here is you guys are very sensitive to hidden enemies. You are prone to attracting a lot of burdens and negative energy from other people. So I'm always saying to my clients, it's very, very, very important that you are practicing rituals to protect your energy. The thing is with the 12th house, it's very suppressed energy. And because you have Pluto in here, Pluto is a malefic. And when you have squares to Pluto, particularly Mars as well, it can make you someone who is very, very aggressive, right? However, this always varies because Pluto energy is, the 12th house is going to suppress your feelings, suppress your expressions. So when it comes to talking about your own individual experiences, it's all going to be a secret to you and you don't share with anybody. That's why it's so important that you have a small, it has to be a small amount. You can't have, you're not even someone who has loads of friends, right? But with this placement, you have to have someone that you trust wholeheartedly and you offload this energy onto, because it's not fair for you people to keep these burdens and these secrets to yourself. It can be very overbearing. And when you're someone who doesn't express, this is what messes with your mental state, because you're overthinking and you're burdening yourself with these secrets and you have to just offload onto someone. But what I found with people who do have this placement, they make extremely good counselors, people who are helping others in regards to traumatic experiences that they've been through. Now, what I have found with this placement, a few of my clients have had Lilith in their 12th house. 12th house can also represent substance abuse, addiction. Okay, Neptune is awful, all right? It really is. But when Lilith falls in this house, even if Lilith is in Leo as well, what I found, there can be issues with addiction as well, especially if it's conjunct Pluto. You've got to be extremely careful with substance abusing. I've said this a lot of times to my clients, like, you need to be very particular about who you have around you, because you are prone to having hidden enemies. People will say, yeah, you know, just try a little, you know, a bit of coke here or there, and you may try it just because it's just something to do, it's fun. However, that person may be trying to get you to have more and more and more. That person can become a hidden enemy because they've now made you someone who is now addicted, or you are now substance abusing more than you was beforehand. So you've got to be very, very careful when you have Pluto in this house, and Lilith as well. So I would recommend that you people need to do a lot of rituals, traditional practices that keep you very much protected in regards to your energy and your spirit, because you are prone to having people do dark magic, black magic on you. You know, when you have a feeling like, wow, does this person like me? Or there's just a funny feeling and you're not really sure, you know. And my sister was severely bullied in school, and it even now I get emotional just like thinking about it. It upsets the hell out of me. And this was many years ago. And she knows, she just has this feeling that this guy is still kind of after her, and it prevents her from going to certain areas in London because she wants to avoid having to see him. And she will kill me for saying this. She doesn't really watch my videos like that anyway, but this is very private, personal and secretive to her. And I know this because she's a Pluto 12th house person. It creates enemies, and although this may be a long time ago, to a lot of Pluto 12th house people, they still have that intuitive feeling that that person is still after them. So I always advise that you people really need to learn to just protect yourself in some type of ritual, like have spiritual baths, cleanses, constantly sage your motherfucking house. Whenever someone comes around to visit you, it's so important you remove any of their negative energies. The good thing is with Pluto being in this house is that there's a lot of hidden gifts, and it takes someone who is evolved, who has the patience and the time to actually find it, because depression can come from the 12th house because you're not always, like I said, it's to do with your mental. I mentioned with schizophrenia, even bipolar, any form of depression can definitely come from the 12th house. And also like squares and conjunctions to your moon, that all makes a contribution as well. But you've got to be very careful with Pluto being in here, because you can be prone to sadness, and sadness can come from not being able to offload. You have to offload, and you guys have severe trust issues because you don't trust just anybody. You have to find someone that you can offload this energy onto to prevent yourself from depression and harboring all of this energy that you have. Now, when it comes to your sexual energy, and sexuality can be seen as, sexuality comes into this house because it's your imagination, but then you've got Pluto. Pluto is sex, right? So you have an imagination that runs wild. Your imagination, like I find Pluto in the 12th house, especially if you've got Mars Saturn aspects to the 8th house, right? 8th house is sexuality. You've got to be very, very careful with this energy, because it can make you someone who could be prone to sexual abuse, okay? Or someone who has an imagination where they may desire aggressive styles of sex. And if you want to know a lot more about that, I advise you to watch my sexual trauma video in regards to Pluto. I will attach that to this video. And also, like with your Pluto being in here, it can create sexual fantasies, but weird stuff that other people are not necessarily, other people are like, oh, that's a bit, are you really into that? Okay, but you won't tell people your sexual fantasies. You won't express this stuff, because remember, Scorpio, Pluto, secrets. It's not something that you discuss and tell to the world, but your imagination is crazy big, and people would never know how big your imagination really is, because you are very, very secretive about it. What I have found with this house as well, you can have secret sexual affairs, all right? This can lead to falling in love with someone that you really know that you shouldn't be with. It's like having Venus in that house as well. Like, you're prone to a lot of like affairs with people, and I actually did a reading, and this guy had his Lilith in Taurus, and it was in his 5th house, but he had a bit of his Scorpio in his 12th house, right? And it was crazy because this guy had his Lilith was in Taurus, right? And it was very interesting because with this placement, he had a lot of secret sexual affairs, right? But when you have your Lilith in Taurus, Taurus is all about your finances and your wealth. And how that related to him was the fact that he would probably sleep with prostitutes, have a lot of casual sex with people. And that can relate to even paying and bribing people for sex. When your Pluto is in your 12th house, it can be seen as someone who may look at that as their secret sexual experiences, because those things are very private and personal to people. Because the 5th house is all about casual sex, romances, fun, and any planets in that house in aspect to your Pluto is going to be somewhat secretive to you. The last thing I want to say is, you guys stay away from anybody that you feel doesn't like you, has funny vibes towards you, because like I said, you seem to attract a lot of this energy towards you. Stay away from those people, even if it's just a vibe. If someone feels like, okay, if you feel like this person, they're a bit funny, Stay away from them. Furthermore, I'm not saying completely block and delete them, but keep them at arm's length, a distance, something that you can control. So that way you are able to control, you are able to be in control of the energies that are around you. So like I said, I strongly advise you guys need to do a lot of spiritual work, protecting yourselves. Those of you who don't know where to start, I would definitely look up on a few like YouTube videos to see what stuff that you can do in regards to like practicing rituals, protection spells. Like, it's crazy because I remember like years ago people would say to me like, oh, I feel like someone's put a hex on me or a curse, and I'm sitting there like, why are you chatting shit? Like, really? Like, I'm not believing it. But this is a typical placement for someone who would say something like that. And you guys have no idea how powerful this energy is. Like, having Pluto in that house, it's suppressed energy. But you are here to learn how to utilize it for the masses, all right? Utilize it to benefit yourself, because it's not the best house to have Pluto, but nothing is like the best thing to have. It's just about working with it. You guys have to just take your time, be patient, and learn to master your energy. So I would advise you never use any black magic against anybody in a negative way. I would 100% I would recommend you using rituals, practice under the moon as well, and dive deep into any spirituality books. I follow a few YouTube pages. I would recommend you start looking for some and just diving deep into spiritual practices that can protect your energy, because that is what you need. All right. So that is my video on Pluto 12th house. I hope you guys have thoroughly enjoyed it. I will see you on the next one, people. Take care.